This will be an important election. Yes, it will also be a decisive election. Because in the next 4 years, we as Danes and we as Europeans will really have to stand on our own 2 feet. We must define our relationship with the United States. We must rearm ourselves to ensure peace on our continent. We must keep Europe together. And as everyone knows, the conflict over Greenland, for example, is not over yet. The government will therefore also have to deal with the international situation during an election campaign.
Donald Trump claims the US, Denmark and Greenland will reach an Arctic security deal. Talks between the countries began several days ago. The US president is calling for the US to take over Greenland.
We have started a negotiation, and I think it's pretty well agreed to. I mean, they want us to do it. I think it's going to be a good deal for everybody. A very important deal. Actually, from a national security point of view, very, very important deal. I think we're going to make a deal.
War in Ukraine, tension with China and a potential nuclear deal between Iran and Washington are all on the agenda at Munich's Security Conference. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is leading the delegations at the first major global event since President Donald Trump threatened Greenland. Deborah Haynes filed this report.
That big building over there behind me, that big hotel, is where the delegates are meeting. There's a big hall, and earlier today you had the German Chancellor giving this opening speech, which really is his attempt to set the tone for this year's Munich Security Conference, in stark contrast to last year, which was rather overshadowed by the US Vice President and what he was saying to delegates about criticising European democracy and offering America First view of the world. So for Mette, who was just speaking earlier, he delivered this very strong message, including in English, to the Americans that were there in the audience. And I wanted to read a little bit. He sort of talks about how in the era of great power rivalry, even the United States will not be powerful enough to go it alone. And he says, "Dear friends," obviously it's a friendly tone, being part of NATO, the NATO alliance, is not only Europe's competitive advantage, it's also the US's competitive advantage. And so let's repair and revive transatlantic ties. And I think this is really strong language, because the transatlantic alliance, that bond between Europe and the United States and of course Canada, has been put under huge strain. I mean, you talked about what happened in Davos just a few weeks ago with Donald Trump trying to talk about seizing Greenland, which is obviously part of the Kingdom of Denmark, which is part of the NATO alliance. And so for the Europeans here, they really are trying to demonstrate that they have a voice too, that they are strong as well, and they want the Americans to hear that.
America and Israel are on the verge of war with Iran. The US government has sent a dozen fighter jets to Israel, while Australian diplomats are being evacuated from the region. American Vice President J.D. Vance today said the craziest and worst regime in the world can't have a nuclear weapon.
But the principle is very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they try to rebuild a nuclear weapon, that causes problems for us. And in fact, we've seen evidence that they have tried to do exactly that. So the president sending those negotiators to try to address that problem, as the president has said repeatedly, he wants to address that problem diplomatically, but of course the president has other options as well.
I spoke about the looming war and Iranian regime change in an exclusive interview with recently retired Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer. Ron Dermer, thank you very much for your time and welcome to Australia.
Good to be with you, Shari.
Now, the United States is building up its military arsenal in the region around Iran. In the event that President Trump does choose to strike, are you expecting military action from the US is imminent?
Well, it's a decision that the president's obviously going to have to make, but he can make this decision now because exactly as you said, he's put a lot of military resources into the area. About a month and a half ago, when the Iranian people were protesting in mass and they were killed in mass by their regime, the president of the United States encouraged them, to go out, to continue to protest, basically saying, America has your back, help is on the way. And since that, over the last several weeks, America has been building up its military power in the region, and it has the ability to act, I think, broadly against Iran. But the president, as he usually tries to do, is thinking, maybe I can actually achieve my goals through diplomacy. And he sent his team of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to meet with the Iranians and basically to say to them, look, we can either do this the easy way or the hard way. We prefer the easy way without military action, and here's what the president's positions are. And I believe that the positions of the United States are to remove completely Iran's military nuclear capability, get rid of the enriched material that they still have, make sure that they don't have any enrichment capability that could create a threat in the future. And hopefully they will also deal with the ballistic missiles of Iran. And if not, I think there'll be serious consequences. And President Trump is a man whose word should be taken very seriously.
You mentioned there the Special Envoy Steve Witkoff in his comments. In fact, just a few days ago, he said that Iran is a week away, just 1 week away from developing nuclear bomb-making material, as you mentioned, uranium enrichment. Does your assessment align with this? And why does Iran still have nuclear material even after the strikes by the US and Israel last year?
So I think what Steve meant by that is that Iran is left with a lot of highly enriched uranium. Military-grade nuclear material is 90% enriched uranium. You start at 3.5%, and then you can move to 20%, and then 60%, and then finally you get to 90%. Well, they have a lot of 60% enriched uranium. And I think what Steve was saying is if you did have an enrichment facility, and if you did have enough centrifuges, you could take the 60% enriched uranium that they have buried underground in there are 2 sites, by the way, and they could do it within a very short amount of time, a matter of days. That's what he was saying. But the enrichment facilities were destroyed. Fordow was destroyed by the American B-2 bombing. Israel hit Natanz, that enrichment facility, and then the United States bombed that as well. Another enrichment facility, the apertures leading to the outside, were closed off by an American cruise missile strike. And Israel also took action, as you will recall, against centrifuge making capability, against the conversion facility that we destroyed, without which you can't build a nuclear weapon, and also against the top scientists in Iran who were working on the Iranian equivalent of the Manhattan Project. So I don't think Steve meant to say that Iran can move towards a nuclear weapon in a week. It means that they have enriched material that can become military grade within a matter of days. And that's why one of the things that would have to be resolved through any negotiating process is the 400 plus kilos of highly enriched uranium would have to be removed from Iran and diluted.